So, Jonathan, welcome to my YouTube channel. How you feel?
Feeling great, Terumi-san. It's
Mm-hmm.
very good to talk to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining. So, can you explain who are you? What do you do? And are you live in the States or are you live in Japan? What do you do?
Yeah, well, yeah. First of all, my name is Jonathan. Most of my friends call me Jay. You can use both. It's no problem. I live in Tokyo, and I've lived in Tokyo for 4 years. I work for a Japanese company in the transportation and logistics industry, and I've been working with the Japanese for 25 years. I know people find
Wow.
that hard to believe. I'm not so young, and yeah, I have also have a family as well, three daughters, and they are all basically native Japanese speakers, as my wife is Japanese, and yeah, they're all here with me in Tokyo, in Japan. And I really put off a formal study of learning Japanese for a very long time. I don't actually have a good reason why. I guess I guess maybe I just very American way, just the one head, one language, and that was the way for so long. But then I moved to Japan, and maybe kind of two things, kind of struck me. One thing was my youngest daughter, who was 4 years old at the time, and all my children learned Japanese as their first language, even while we were in the United States. And when we got to Japan, because my youngest was only 4 years old, she she kind of forgot to speak English.
Wow.
She forgot how to speak English, and it was much more difficult to communicate with her. So I was, getting a little bit frustrated with that. So I was really, um, after a period of time, I was really kind of inspired to start learning. And the other thing was of course, finally working in headquarters of a Japanese company, and everything is in Japanese. All the all the documents, all of the conversation. In my section, which is an international division, yes, you still speak English, but the communication among colleagues is still in Japanese. So I did take Japanese lessons before, maybe 2019, very,
Mm-hmm.
very, structured, language learning wasn't fun, wasn't interesting, a lot of memorization and, kind of, just did it went through the motions. I went through the motions and took, I almost 100 Japanese language lessons. And shortly after, I really didn't remember a thing. I had textbooks, and I wasn't using the language. I really didn't take it from the classroom to practical application. That was kind of a I don't know, failure. A couple of years later, I guess it was, I found the Japanese Language Factory, and I've started my new journey into Japanese, and it's gone a lot better.
You did the 100 lesson. You didn't remember almost anything. It's a huge discouragement. A lot of people actually feel like maybe it's too late to study such a difficult language. And then how actually, experience, first of all, this, 100 lesson. What did you do and then what's happened this time?
Yeah, the language lessons were very structured, and it was the difficult thing was, first of all, working in the office all day, and then leaving office, going right to Japanese language lessons, a couple train stops away from the office, and then sitting in a small room with one person, a whiteboard, the textbook, a CD player, for 1 hour, memorizing things on the board, and looking at the book, and repeating phrases from the book over and over again, and then taking a break for 10 minutes, and then doing another hour. this was this was the routine.
What was actually the experience in Japan Language Factory? What was the huge difference?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And first of all, I'm 47, so almost 48. So yeah, if I can start a language journey at this age, pretty much anybody can do it. Well, the main difference with Japanese Language Factory was the coaching aspect of things. And I have been trained as a business coach, so I understood that. And when I read that part about what Japanese Language Factory does, I was very intrigued by that. So I wanted to get in and find out how that works. And then when I got in, yeah, it's really coaching based. And it's about setting your own goals, your reason why. And then the program is adapted to filling in those gaps, and pushing you along, not necessarily pushing, but setting you along the path towards achieving your goals. So it's kind of like you're working for yourself, in a way, if you can understand that. And that really made it interesting. Really encouraging you to apply. And I think that's the main thing. I mean, we take lessons, and they're applicable to things that we actually want to do. So it's much easier to go and apply them directly. The day after, the minute after the lesson is over, go out and apply those things, and you get into a routine of doing that, of kind of practice. And you learn. And I found that my retention is, yeah, much higher. It's higher than I even expected. I mean, I always thought I was a pretty decent memorizer. But yeah, I've retained a lot more language and understanding of the language. And bit by bit, more and more able to speak. And Shona-san, my coach, oh, she's been fantastic. So cheerful and supportive, and encouraging. Oh yeah, it's always a joy to see her and work with her. And yeah, it just makes everything really nice, really smooth. It's still challenging, but it's a great way to take on a challenge.
If you say like I'm learning Japanese, usually how people actually react.
Yeah, I mean, my American friends, or even family back home, maybe they're not so surprised at this point. Since I've
Mm,
been in Japan for so long. Not really surprised at my action, but I think maybe they think about themselves, like, oh, wow, it would be so difficult for me to learn how to
mm,
speak Japanese. Something like that. Or Japanese is a very difficult language, to
yeah.
learn. I they kind of think that, oh, I you can never do it. And
Mm.
yeah, that's an interesting attitude. I can understand that attitude. But yeah, once you start in a good way, a good program, yeah, you can learn. Even an old guy like me can.
Saying English. What was
Hmm.
it kind of, if you pick up like one like big trigger, like why you could make this action?
Yeah, I think I got to the point where I was, it's now into my fifth year in, living in Japan. And I thought about, my life, my family, my career. And I was like, you know what? I think I'd like to stay in Japan. And
Mm,
once I kind of decided on, okay, I think I'm going to stay in Japan, do what I can to stay in Japan. I said, I have to learn how to speak the language. Because if you can come to Japan, and you can be in Japan, and you not know Japanese, and you can be kind of sort of okay. Maybe if you can say, konnichiwa, ohayo gozaimasu, and a few other things, you'd be okay. But if you don't know the language, you cannot get into Japan. I mean, you cannot
yeah,
get into what's going on in Japan, and the people cannot get into you.
yeah.
So that was, that trigger. Once I decided to, that I was likely to stay in Japan for, for the duration, for a long time. I decided to, take the step of getting into a Japanese language course.
Mm-hmm. So like how do you feel like as American, so many years you living in the States and then decided to stay here, Japan, so different country, and then kind of have a fear because everything is Japanese language, but still like you felt like, okay, I'm gonna stay here for long term. Like what is actually the reason?
Yeah, it's a very funny thing because I guess around 2017 or so, I had not even a thought of living in Japan. In terms of my career path, I thought it was all going to be within the United States, and I was going to be, you know, rise to a certain position in the United States, and that was going to be the way things were. And then, fortunately, my company gave me this opportunity. They wanted to come and work in the headquarters. It was actually only supposed to be, I think, a 2-year assignment, but it got extended. It was doing pretty well in with the work and business here, and yeah, so I really uh, came to like living in Japan unexpectedly. I didn't think I would like it so much, and it's a good place for my kids. Of course, it's very easy for my family to adapt. We're close to my wife's side of the family here, very close, and it kind of all worked out. The only kind of variable was me, so I kind of decided to change myself a bit and see if I could you know not even fit in but live and be a part of community in Japan, and that's what I've decided to do. So hopefully I can keep that up and stay in Japan for a while. Maybe after next year, resume back to traveling a bit more. But yeah,
Yeah.
living in Japan, I think is the direction I'm going in.
If you pick up like a one or two, like what is something so fascinating, like you feel like, wow, this is a good place to live. Like, what do you pick up?
Well, I mean, the one thing here, it's I think, especially if you have a family, it's very safe.
Mm.
And this is having the peace of mind, living in Japan, even in a huge city like Tokyo, live in downtown Tokyo, and it's quite safe. The kids the kids come and go as they please. They get they walk 15, 20 minutes or so to school and back, and it's no big deal. Very safe, very clean, very orderly, and yeah, everything is pretty peaceful here.
Mm.
So that's kind of not necessarily a huge difference depending on where you live in the United States, but for me, that really sealed the deal for me. I said, yeah, this is a great safe place. 3 daughters. Oh, it's no brainer. Live in
Mm.
Japan.
Amazing. Great. Thank you so much. What is actually the differences before studying master course and then now? Can you
Mm.
see the differences?
Yeah, yeah. I think I wouldn't say life is totally different, but definitely, very different now, especially in the last month or so when I've really started applying the language. People are much more open, especially for me at work. My work colleagues are not only open to speak some in Japanese, they're open to speak English, which which is also very interesting to speak at all, because maybe there's something generated when you speak to someone in their own language. They're much more willing, much more open to talk to you. So I've had a lot more engagements with my colleagues. Maybe they're speaking more English and at the same time more Japanese, which I have to really try to catch up on. Outside of work, been able to make a couple of friends, a couple new friends outside,
Cool.
as my comings and goings around the city. So that's very good. Um, which I didn't really engage with too many purely Japanese speaking people outside of work before. So yeah, that's been a couple major changes. I'm my daughter, my youngest daughter, and I we're having much more of a language exchange now. And that's fun. She actually likes that. She actually looks forward to chatting more in English and Japanese. But like all my children, she's very busy. So
You couldn't speak Japanese, when you started our master course. And for the first time, you tried to really speak Japanese in front of people, to the actual real native Japanese people, maybe who cannot speak English at all. Did you try to push yourself?
yeah, well, I always have had opportunities to speak because I work in a Japanese company. We have many meetings, and a lot of times it's quite formal. Structured meetings where we kind of say the same things over and over again. So actually, I that was kind of the first big opportunity. I took the chance to start doing my introductions in Japanese, and
Wow.
in the Zoom meeting, and also in the face to face. And oh, it was really amazing to see the reactions, because like I said, people thought I didn't speak any. Well, they weren't sure, I should say, but they were really surprised when I could say a few words and phrases in Japanese. And I'm told my pronunciation is pretty good. So they were really surprised at how well the pronunciation was, which I have my own theories about. But yeah, that was kind of the first, stepping into the water, and
Hmm.
maybe not necessarily stepping into the deep end, kind of stepping into the middle of the pool, and just starting to do that. And the reaction from my colleagues and my superiors was very, very positive. So I have continued on from there.
Amazing. If you pick up one experience, like a best experience in speaking Japanese, like can you share like some story, like, oh, because people start saying this, or yeah, like you really felt this confidence, or like something you really felt this progress, if you pick up one best experience so far?
Well, I had one really good experience. One day I was in the office maybe about a month or so ago, and my colleague, who is the kind of chairman of our Monday meeting, he comes to me and he says, "Oh, Jason, I think you can understand." He's just talking to me in English, by the way, which is funny.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Oh, I think you can understand Japanese very well. So from now on, I'm going to give, I'm going to introduce you by Japanese." I said, I said, okay. I said, that's fine. I think I'll be able to figure out when my name is
Hmm.
called, when you want me to talk. And he says, yes, thank you very much. And he says, oh, so many people think you secretly fully understand Japanese. So I was flattered by that, a little bit surprised, but it's another thing, right? So you speak a little bit of Japanese, and especially at work, it's a little bit, and people open up.
Yeah.
People open up, and it kind of changes the dynamic. It changes maybe how people look at you, and changes, it gives them more motivation to approach you and engage. So that's been a really great and positive thing.
Thank you so much.
Are you expat? Live in Japan? You started living in Japan, you're super excited to communicate with locals. You can enjoy traveling, meeting people. And now you start using this textbook and you feel like, wow, that's so many. Elementary school textbook, another elementary school textbook, and how many hours should you study? Let's think one more time. In order to communicate like a normal guy, you can do everything in the basic everyday life. Should you finish all those textbooks? Otherwise, you won't understand what they're talking. You cannot express yourself, anything. First of all, there are always two ways to learn languages. One is documentational language. The other one is conversational language. It's like, once upon a time, grandmother and grandfather are living somewhere. Or, hey, what's up? How's it going? Which is conversational. What is the most effective way to learn how to speak Japanese? Textbooks can't talk to you, so you cannot improve your listening skill and pronunciation, how to communicate. So why Japanese children can speak Japanese so quickly? Because they are learning conversational Japanese. The good news is, in Japan Language Factory, we have a specific learning structure to improve your conversational Japanese. So you can join the conversation, you can understand what they're talking, you can respond quickly, and express what you are thinking. If you want to be able to speak Japanese as soon as possible, join our free consultation to figure out what is the fastest way to start speaking Japanese.